You probably got a
We're on
notification.
YouTube right now. It says
Yeah,
meeting is.
got it.
Hi, hello
Hello,
everyone. Happy
everybody.
Friday. Welcome to Ask the Experts, Ask Dr. Q. I just want to see, so this is our very first time going live on YouTube. So hopefully this was a request from the community. You all wanted to tune in, but be able to do other things. And so we are trying out YouTube to see if you guys like it. Okay. Okay, cool. And hopefully I can track questions from YouTube. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on live on Sickle Cell 101. Okay. All right, I'm live on Sickle Cell 101 and I will wait for Dr. Q and my mom to come on, and I can either send you an invite or you can request to join.
I think it says I joined, but
Oh, yep, I see you, Dr. Q. Hello.
okay.
All
Do you see
right.
me?
Let's see here. I do not, Mom. Are you? Oh, yep, I see you here. I hear a little echo, so if you can turn the volume down on your device. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday.
Okay, now I'm on.
Hi, Dr. Q.
Hello, everybody.
I feel like that was the fastest you've ever gotten on.
I hear an echo too, by the way.
Okay. Does everybody have their volume down on their phone? Hi, guys. Is
Hello.
it too late to say Happy New Year? My rule is all January you can say Happy New Year. All right. So thank you guys for joining us. Please put in the comments where you are tuning in from. And let me shout out some places. Dr. Q and a special guest, my mom, Angela Ehrlich. I'll let her introduce herself. But wanted to start the year off with a big bang. So if you have any questions, especially like parents, my mom, like I said, I won't tell you too much, but it's me and my sister with sickle cell. So go ahead and put in questions or where you're tuning in from, and Mom, I'll give it over to you to do an introduction and we'll get started.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Well, I am Cassandra's mother. I am also an educator. I've been an educator for 35 years, and I've done all kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. I do have two children with sickle cell, and for those parents with children with sickle cell, if you have any questions on how to cope or how to deal with it and how to deal with stress, I am here to answer your questions. So it's been a pleasure being here, and feel free to ask whatever questions to a provider. So I'm here.
All right. So you guys answer the tough questions, because there's some things that I would like to know about how she deals with two kids with sickle cell. I feel like she's always in a state of worry. Is that true,
Mhm.
Mom?
I am always in a state of worry.
Worry is her main emotion.
And it never,
Worry and happiness, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. It never ends. If you're a mother, it never ends, and you all know that.
Okay. Miss Fancy, I'm so sorry you're in the hospital right now. 17 days. I hope you get out soon. I hope that you're getting good care. So sorry to hear about that.
Yeah,
Um,
hang in there.
Hi, Sky. You're getting a stem cell transplant. Wow, that is a huge, huge, huge thing. Wishing you the best of luck. Um, New York City, Pittsburgh. Somebody said Dr. Q used to be my doctor at Children's Hospital of Oakland.
Oh, wow.
Who are you? It's break it off for Break it up for data. Houston, Texas, DMV, Long Beach, Philadelphia, Cali. We're in California too. Nigeria, North Carolina. In honor of my friend Ricardo Andrew Taylor, bravest sickle cell warrior I know. Thank you guys. I'm waiting for the questions.
I think somebody asked, what type of sickle cell do my children have? Both have SS.
Okay, Dr. Q, do you want to answer that one? I didn't see that question.
Oh, they were asking your mom what you and your sister.
Okay. I misunderstood that. Yes, we both have SS. All right. All right, here's the first question I see here. Are there any cures that have been discovered for sickle cell? That's a big question. Dr. Q.
Yeah, there have, well, a lot of people don't like to say cure. They like to say new therapies or something like that, because the three things that people generally call a cure are bone marrow transplant, stem cell transplant, and gene therapy. Stem cell transplant has been around for a long time, not necessarily for sickle cell, but stem cell transplant started in the late 80s. And now stem cell transplant has really evolved to the point where if you have an HLA, if you have a sibling, a sister or brother who has the same parents, and they are an HLA identical to you, you have like at least a 95% chance of having cure and survival. So that is sort of the benchmark for sickle cell disease. There are new therapies for sickle cell disease. One is a gene therapy that you collect your stem cells, so that it's more complicated on some level than a bone marrow transplant, but it avoids a lot of the complications of a bone marrow transplant from a donor, because you're using your very own stem cells. So those stem cells are collected, and either there's a gene therapy that turns on fetal hemoglobin, which is an anti-sickling hemoglobin that's normal in babies, and that's why very young children don't have symptoms of sickle cell, because their fetal hemoglobin is so high. That's one of the things that hydroxyurea does. It increases your fetal hemoglobin. But this therapy, the gene therapy, really increases your fetal hemoglobin way beyond generally what hydroxyurea would do. And it's a permanent change. So when those cells are infused back into you after they've been treated with the gene therapy, you start making fetal hemoglobin. And in the studies anyway, those people don't have symptoms of sickle cell disease. The other type of gene therapy is to insert a not normal like what I would have hemoglobin, but a normal type of hemoglobin that can be tracked to make sure that the therapy was effective, and you're making a normal hemoglobin to protect you from sickle cell. And that one, it's almost, I mean, I guess the analogy would be like a blood transfusion, where most of your blood was not sickle blood, so that your symptoms decrease. So those are the two gene therapies. The issues with those is they haven't been around for a long, long time. And the studies, the FDA has requested that the companies that do this extend their study for 15 years to make sure that there aren't problems or with these therapies out years from now. Unfortunately, because of the conditioning they use in one of the gene therapies, two people got AML. It's a type of leukemia, and one of them died. And those effects occurred like years after the transplant, and that's why they want the
I
companies
didn't realize it was years after.
yeah, it was like 2 3 years
Wow.
after
Wow.
after the
Yeah.
transplant. So, and one got something called MDS, which is not, it's kind of like a precancer, but they didn't actually get the AML. But it wasn't caused by the gene. The therapy itself was caused by the conditioning. So they have
The
to give you a,
chemotherapy.
yeah, they have
Conditioning
to
is
give you like,
chemotherapy, right?
yeah, they have to give you chemotherapy to what they call making space in your bone marrow so that the cells they infuse can engraft and start working. And unfortunately, uh, there are people where this actually has caused AML. At least that's what that was what the outcome was.
Yeah. So there, gene therapy, we have options right now, right? There's two newly approved here in the US. But this is just the beginning of what this will look like, right? To me personally, because somebody asked, how do you feel about gene therapy? And I'll have, Mom, if you want to answer that as well from what you know. For me personally, uh, uh the conditioning or the chemotherapy isn't worth the risk for me. But I do know that there's, other approaches in the works that don't use chemotherapy and that might use antibodies. And maybe that's a better fit for me. So it really does require a lot of conversation. This topic is very complex, it's very intricate. And so it's hard to kind of take it at face value. I think at face value, it's great that we're getting more therapies for sickle cell, because that's always the goal. And nothing is ever one size fits all for everybody with sickle cell. But you kind of just have to really dig into how, there's different approaches. One uses, like as Dr. Q says, it flips on that fetal hemoglobin switch so that you produce more fetal hemoglobin. There are some approaches that are being investigated that try and go in and fix the typo, and has nothing to do with fetal hemoglobin at all, just fixing the typo. And so there's a lot of ways to go about gene therapy. Two of those ways have been approved, but there are still many more that are being studied.
Right. And in the future, and this has worked in animal models where there's no chemotherapy, you infuse the gene therapy material, and it goes into it recognizes your stem cells and inserts the new gene without any chemotherapy. It's like you go into a infusion center, you get an infusion, and then that's it. But those kinds of therapies are at least probably a decade, 10 years away. These are like, they start doing animal studies, but there's no guarantee that these new types of studies these new types of therapy will work in people. And they've also used, the COVID vaccines use messenger RNA, and there are new types of gene therapy that use that same model. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline, but they are quite a ways away. The other thing is that there's a lot of medical therapy, hydroxyurea, there's new drugs that have been approved. And so if you have sickle cell disease, you should be on some kind of therapy. Hydroxyurea is probably the most efficacious one and the one with the most experience. But if you have sickle cell disease, SS, beta zero thalassemia, you should be on some kind of therapy. It's life changing.
Mom, what are your thoughts on gene therapy as you know it?
Are you asking me or your mom?
My mom.
Okay.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're
Did something change? No, we can't hear you. Can you guys hear her?
no.
Okay. Can't hear you. Okay. Well, so that's I there was a follow-up question here about gene therapy, and it is out of all the treatments, which is the most safe? Is there one that's the most safe, or is there one that is recommended, Dr. Q?
Uh, they all use the you have to separate it out. The gene therapy, the actual, well, they call them drugs, but the actual drug that has been approved is does not have side effects, apparently. I mean, they looked at it and they can't see that it has side effects. The side effects are from the conditioning, and they all use the same conditioning. They use busulfan. So the risks of gene therapy today with the two approved gene therapies are the same, because the risk involved is not the gene therapy, it's the conditioning that you have to have before they infuse the gene therapy drug.
Yeah.
So there's no difference between the two. But I think what Cassandra was saying is everything in medicine, hydroxyurea, the new drugs that have been approved, old drugs, transplant, gene therapy, everything in medicine has side effects. So you have to think, and it's a very individual thing. You have to think, what are the downsides and what are the upsides? Am I willing to take the risk, no matter how small, that something could happen? And you have to balance that. And some people would feel that, the risk of getting AML from gene therapy is so low that, to me, it's worth it because I just want to get gene therapy and be cured. The risk of having graft versus host disease or other problems with the bone marrow transplant are low. They're in the single digit percent. And so is that a risk that I'm willing to take? And a lot of people would say yes, a few people would say no. So it's a very individual thing. But what Cassandra is saying is you need to be informed. There's informed consent for these therapies, and you need to read it and understand what the downsides, the side effects are. And if you don't, if you're not absolutely positive you understand what they're talking about, you need to ask questions. Don't be shy about that. This is the therapies, are very complicated. I mean, a lot of doctors probably don't really, that are in doing something other than what we're doing, they probably don't totally understand it. So if you're a patient and you're want to get these therapies, any kind of therapies, including hydroxyurea, you need to know what the side effects are and are they acceptable to you.
Yeah.
And it may be acceptable to your sister, but it's not acceptable to you. And that's totally okay. Because when you do things like this, it's not a transplant, gene therapy. You can't, once the therapy is started, you can't decide, hey, I think I don't want to do this. Well, it's too late. It's done. So you have to continue. You just have to go with it. So make sure that you know the side effects, they're acceptable to you, and then you're ready to do that therapy. Unlike hydroxyurea, if you get side effects, you can just stop it, and that's the end of it. So That's the difference between taking a medication and doing
And
something
the
that's
cure.
permanent, gene
Yeah.
therapy or bone marrow
I
transplant.
also think it should be like, I don't think the decision should be like, it should take a long time. I feel like that decision that you decide to get a cure should take a while. Like, I feel that it should be many conversations with doctors, many conversations with family members, many conversations with, whoever else is important to you. And I almost feel like it should take at least a year to, and maybe, and this isn't really coming out of anywhere, but like it should take a while,
Yeah.
just to make sure that you really understand it, because doctors will hand this consent form, right? And that's one piece of it, but it's so two-dimensional, and the experience is out of this world. It's beyond 3D. It's like there's sometimes nothing that a piece of paper can say that will prepare you for the process. And so I also encourage to talk with other people who have undergone that, because they will tell you something that a doctor could never tell you. They'd be like, oh, when you get busulfan, you just, my right, like they'll be oddly specific too. It'd be like my right leg got really tired or numb or whatever. And of course that could, you always have to remember that's their experience and it may not happen to you. But it's just like they'd be able to answer, while you're undergoing conditioning or undergoing this chemotherapy, can you work? And of course, like I said, it's individual, but that stuff isn't in a piece of paper. That stuff isn't in informed consent. So take your time and thinking about it, really learn as much as you can about it, and then talk with others about it. I
And
feel like I can hear you now, Mom.
Oh, yeah. Like Dr. Q said, you want to research about any treatment before you embark on it, because there's so much information out there and it could be very, very confusing. So if you make sure you do have somebody, like a team with you to help you make that sound decision as to what you want to embark on. So call anybody you know to help, with the process, to research more about the process before using whatever treatment you decide to embark on. That's from a parent's perspective. That's what I'll do. I'll reach out to people who've been through the process. I'll reach out to how they're feeling. um, I'll look back and see if there's anybody in the past that have done it and how they're doing today, and then go from there. So that's from a parent's perspective. That's the way I will approach it.
yeah,
I like it.
the other thing I'd like to say is, parents make this decision for their
Mm-hmm.
children. So,
Yeah.
if you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or 5 or whatever, and which actually is the best time to do a bone marrow transplant if they have a sibling, because children are very healthy and they tend to do better with a bone marrow transplant. But believe me, the unexpected things happen in medicine. So when you make the decision for yourself or you make the decision for your child, just keep in mind that when you made that decision, that was the best decision you could make at the time. So if things don't go exactly right, don't blame yourself. You did something for yourself or for another person that that was a good decision. But in medicine, things happen that are unexpected, that are rare. And so you always in your mind when you're doing this, there are things nothing is guaranteed in medicine. Do not ever, I can't really say this, but don't blame yourself if things don't go the way you think they should, because it's not you, it's just the way things are. Things don't always go perfectly in medicine. Sometimes they do, but not every single time. Even if it's a 1%, that still happens to one of 100 people. So that's just my thoughts on that.
And from a parent's perspective, I am always in prayers and for guidance, and just taking the time to listen to your intuition as to what direction to go. Having two children with sickle cell, a lot has been through prayers, I must say, to get by it, to go through it, and also to make sound decisions about my children, and just put it in prayers and just waiting for answers to come.
Okay. All right, that was a quite a bit of time on gene therapy, but hopefully you all got something out of it. I will go ahead and move on to another question that I saw come in. Somebody, I just want to quickly answer this one. Somebody said, just saw a new drug therapy. I wish I could remember what it was called. So just to catch everybody up, last December, 2 new gene therapies were approved for sickle cell disease. And there's a talk within the community and the research community, what we're calling this, if we're calling it curative, the intent is to cure, right? But because everything is so new, there are other names being labeled to that. And I really do feel that it needs to be a conversation, because I'm not sure if people know, like if you just randomly say, they're throwing around the term transformative therapies, as opposed to saying curative therapies. And that's cool, but when I say cure, you all know what I mean right off the bat. When I say transformative therapies, it requires education and explaining. But because of legality and representation and all of that, you might hear that term thrown around a lot. So these 2 new gene therapies, they're both gene therapies, are intended to cure sickle cell disease. So it's intended to be a one-time thing, whereas, other therapies you take on a daily basis, or, blood transfusion on a monthly or whatever you do. Before those therapies, there were 2 disease-modifying therapies that were approved here in the U.S. They are Oxbryta, and which the goal for Oxbryta is to increase hemoglobin, and then crizolizumab.
And our
For those 2, the 2 ones that happened in 2017 are crizolizumab, Adakveo, and then Oxbryta. And then so Adakveo is infusion to help with adhesion for to prevent VOCs. Now, I want to say 2 years before that, Endari, which is L-glutamine, was approved for sickle cell. And then if you go back 20 years before that, it's hydroxyurea. So altogether, we have 5 therapies for sickle cell. Some of them are disease modifying, which, you take, on a regular basis. And then 2 of them are intent to cure, where it's just supposed to be a one-time process. And there's a whole bunch of asterisks and disclaimers around that. So just know, because it's still so brand new. We don't know what long-term effects are and everything. So, but I think I decide to call it intent to cure. That's my version of it. But you guys feel free to respond to that. So those are the therapies. The new therapies, is one of them is by Vertex. It's called Casgevy. And then the second one, it's by Bluebird Bio. And it's called Lifegenia. So these drug names, they're something.
impossible.
Yeah. But those are the names of the 2 therapies to answer that person's question. Anything to add to that, Dr. Q?
No, I think that's very good. There's a lot of therapies, and you need to decide what fits for you. Do you want, if you don't mind taking medication every day, there are really transformative medications available, and they can be taken together, because during the studies, people were a large percentage of the people in these studies were already on hydroxyurea, since that's the medication that's been around for a decade or decades. So you can take them in combination. You really need to talk to your provider about what would be the best combination for you or the best medication for you. Just remember your provider knows you better than anybody. They know how what's happened to you in your lifetime. So that's who should help you make these decisions, really.
All right, I'm still catching up on questions, guys. It says it's echoing really bad. Can you guys turn down the volume on your devices if it's not down already? Mom, is your volume down?
I don't hear about echo.
On your phone, not on your computer,
Yeah,
on your phone.
on my phone.
You guys still hear the echoing?
I don't hear an echo, actually.
What are the name of the drugs? So the names of the drugs are, the very first one is hydroxyurea. That was FDA approved in 1998. And maybe I'll write this down in a comment. The second one that got approved is oral L-glutamine. What's interesting about this one is L-glutamine is found naturally within your body. A lot of people think you can go to GNC and grab L-glutamine from GNC. It's not quite the same. This is pharmaceutical grade L-glutamine. So that's the second therapy for sickle cell. The third one that came out is Adakveo. That's the brand name, and this is for VOCs, for crisis. The fourth one that came out was Oxbryta, and that's to raise hemoglobin. I think they say by 1 gram. And then the fifth one that came out, and both of these came out on the same day, which is kind of exciting. But Vertex's therapy is called Casgevy, and that's a gene therapy. And then Bluebird Bio's therapy is called Lyfgenia, and that's the fourth one. So I'll probably put that in a comment so that you guys have that list. And then I think we have a resource somewhere that I can probably point out or add to the comments after the live. It's still echoing.
Yeah, let me take a look. Oh, phone's not near me.
Thanks for bearing with us. Hey, Smalls. I have Smalls on YouTube. So yeah, just to let you guys know, we are on YouTube now. So a lot of you guys asked to do it on YouTube last year because, you know, keeping your Instagram app open on your phone while, you know, you get calls or whatever, you're not able to listen to live, whereas on YouTube, you can kind of listen in the background. So we are on YouTube. If you have any questions on YouTube, feel free. I'm monitoring that as well. But yes, just know that we are on YouTube Live. All right, hopefully the echo the echo has stopped. I'm going through your comment here. And now I'll write out the name of the therapies that are there. How can I help sickle cell patients in my community? I live in South Florida near Palm Beach. Anyone want to take on that question?
Well, Florida has a lot of community-based organizations, and so I think what can help the most and have the biggest impact is working with a community-based organization where they've already set something up and they support people with sickle cell disease. And what you'd have to do is go to online or Google, or you could go to the National Sickle Cell Association of America, and they would have a list of those. And if there was nothing in your area, you could actually go to a hospital and volunteer. Say, at least in California, it's quite an effort to be a volunteer in a hospital. But if you're a volunteer in a hospital, you could actually talk to people and be very, very helpful. If you have some kind of degree, you could be a health navigator. That's very helpful for people who have sickle, any kind of chronic illness, but like sickle cell disease.
And also, this website has tons of resources that they can recommend to whoever they're taking care of, to go to sicklecell101.org. It does have tons of information that can be very helpful.
I'm just realizing, so I said we have 5 therapies. We actually have 6 therapies, right? Right, Dr. Q? It's hydroxyurea, L-glutamine, crizolizumab, voxelotor, and then the 2 new gene therapies.
And bone marrow transplant.
And bone marrow transplant. Ooh, okay.
That's 7.
Is a bone marrow transplant FDA approved though?
Is it what?
FDA approved?
Oh, yeah. Right. So that's an interesting question. So it's not exactly FDA approved. It's been around for so long that there's never been like and every therapy is different. So they're continually changing the conditioning and the treatment to prevent graft versus host disease. And so it's an evolving thing, but I can tell you right now, it's way better than it was when I started medicine. It's like nothing's 100% like I said, but it's relatively safe. So the way it works is who will pay for the bone marrow transplant? And most insurance companies will pay for children to have a bone marrow transplant, but you have to find somebody who will foot the bill for that. And for some insurance companies, if you are older or you have complications, they may say, we're not gonna authorize payment for that therapy. And I kind of think that there are limitations in other ways too. But children generally are approved for bone marrow transplant, and if you're an adult and you have a lot of complications, sometimes it's harder to get approval. But the FDA, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but as far as I know, the FDA has not really approved bone marrow transplant because there's so many different preparatory regimens and the way they collect cells and they treat cells differently. It's very complicated, which is why you really need to talk to the transplant team if you're thinking about it, to really figure out what are they doing and what are the downsides to it and what are the upsides. And also, how many transplants have they done for sickle cell? That's really important. If they say you're the first one, then you've got to put that to the mix as well.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and take a question from that was sent in. What's it like living in snow while you have sickle cell disease? So what is it like being in cold weather? Horrible. What do you guys have to say about cold weather and sickle cell?
Cold weather, even Mediterranean climates, like we live in the Bay Area, during the wintertime, people generally have more pain episodes. If they go up into the Sierras, which are near us, and they go into the snow, they can have pain episodes. So cold is difficult to deal with. But there are people in Denver, Colorado who have sickle cell, and that's a mile high, and it gets really cold and snowy. So it's not impossible, but you have to really be prepared for that kind of weather. You really need to make sure everything in your feet, your hands, your face, everything is keeping warm. You can't go out in a t-shirt when it's cold.
Yeah, I remember when my two kids would go sledding and in the cold, and then that was my first experience in cold weather in Iowa. And my younger one came home with her hands swollen from the cold and very, very painful. And it took her about a week to get that pain under control, just from being out in the snow and sledding down the hill. At that time, I did not know about, much about the impact of snow on children's hands. Even though she had gloves on, she still had her hands swollen with pain crisis and that. So that's another thing that parents have to look at, because I know as kids they want to join other kids to have fun in the snow, but at the same time, they have to be really careful, make sure that their hands and their feet are totally protected from the cold when they go out.
Yeah, this woman used to make me wear 20 layers when I went outside. Like, I just want to be cute. I just want to wear like, the cute shirt or, whatever. No, I had to have 20 layers. I had an undershirt. I had one of those, what are the like waffle knitted
Right.
shirts. I had a turtleneck. I had a sweatshirt, and then I had my coat, and then I had hats, gloves, socks, boots, and this is probably 50-degree weather.
You're exaggerating.
Wait, growing up in Iowa, the weather was so finicky that you just had to dress in layers so that you could put on or take off to adjust to the weather. But man, I just remember my mom would zip up my coat, and then like she would, like, my skin would get caught in the zipper, and I'm like, ow, and I'm just like
And by the time you guys got out, you all look like the Bill Pillsbury Doughboy.
yeah, we could roll. To be honest, we could roll around if we needed to get around. Growing up in Iowa, because this person asked about the snow. My mom had what is it, a 504 plan for me to stay inside during recess so that I wouldn't get sick. So after that experience, we knew that's a trigger. The cold, the snow is a trigger. And so, you make adjustments and you learn about those things. And so during recess, I stayed inside for both winter and summer. If it was super hot outside, I would stay inside too. To be honest, for me personally, I think the heat is worse for me sickle cell wise than the cold. The cold, I get like probably bone pains, but the heat is where I'll probably have to roll into the ER and get to do something about it. I would need additional help. So be very, very careful. To be honest, I don't think people with sickle cell are made for the cold. I just don't. There's no science behind that. Maybe there is that I don't know about, but I would not recommend it. That's my 2 cents. That's all. That's all I got. All right. I'll ask this question because I know my mom is super into this. Are there any natural alternatives for sickle cell? So, okay, let me just say here, we have a doctor on the live, and then we have my mom. And my mom didn't share this in her introduction, but she is super crunchy. And if you guys don't know what that means, it's like natural living. Everything that touches their body is organic. Everything that goes in their mouth is organic. Like just really using foods and nutrients and oils and all of this stuff to heal or to treat sickle cell, or to treat just in general, I should say. We experiment. Me and my mom experiment with the oils, and then I have my conversations with Dr. Q as well, and he's like, "You're taking your hydroxyurea." So I just say that to say, there's whatever's working, is right for you, right? Whatever works. It's not either or. It's not medicine or healthy living. Like you could be taking hydroxyurea while drinking a green smoothie every day, and both complement each other. And that's my personal opinion. So it's never either or, it's just whatever helps. You should always be living a healthy lifestyle. I think Dr. Q will always agree with that. He always says, go out and eat whole foods, whole grains, all of that. So that should always be a thing for you. And then whether you decide if that's the only thing you want to do, or if you want to be on disease modifying therapies, that's your choice. So I say all that to give you guys background on who's on the call, and what dynamics we have here. So the question is, are there any natural alternatives, Mom, that you've discovered that help with sickle cell, or just maybe the symptoms that people with sickle cell experience?
So the first thing I would say is learning about your body and listening to your body is the key to maintaining your health. And I know that you can't go wrong with vegetables, what I currently do is I do the green juice, which really helps a lot. And I would recommend that in addition to whatever treatment you're going through. So the green juices are great because of the chlorophyll in the green juices, and plenty of rest, and that is required if you have sickle cell, and that's one I cannot speak enough of. um, we live in a world that's always on the move, and we are always under a lot of stress. If you can mitigate your stress through deep breathing exercises, or mitigate it through meditation, those are things that I would recommend, and just listening to your body. And I do a lot of vitamins as well, so by listening to your body and studying some of the vitamins and studying some of the health health information out there, that would be helpful, especially for inflammation, which is one of the key things with sickle cell. Many of you go through a lot of inflammation. So how do you take care of that through your nutrition? So nutrition is key. Whatever you put in your mouth is key to how it reacts. And just listen to your body. When you eat something, how do you feel after that? Do you feel great after it, or does it just make you sink? So those are key that I would recommend for people with sickle cell. It's just to listen to your body and watch what you eat, because it only either would uplift you or it'll make you really go through pain, So, and looking at what works for inflammation naturally. So that would be my recommendation from natural perspective.
I will add, I really do favor evidence-based, as well. And so there are studies, for example, that say turmeric is really great for inflammation. And so look into what evidence is out there to support how this would happen. And there's a lot of evidence around nutrients as well. There's a lot of studies that say, oh, people with sickle cell are deficient in zinc, they're deficient in vitamin D, they're deficient in these things, right? And they've been shown to help maybe lower pain. I'm making this up, right? You have to look at the study. So there are studies out there surrounding nutrients in sickle cell. And so take a look at it. You can also ask your doctors, or your doctor should be telling you what you're deficient in, to make sure that those levels are where they need to be, so that you're healthy. So there's also that as well.
So I'll give you an example. My son was having alopecia, losing his hair, and I asked him to go take a test specifically for vitamin D. And he did take the test of vitamin D, and he was really, really low in vitamin D. So we had to, have him take more vitamin D to help him with his situation, because it was on the verge of autoimmune. So So if you're low in a vitamin, or and you can find out through some blood work that specifically tell you what you're low in, you can increase your nutrition in those areas. And there are many functional nutritionists out there that can assist with that process as well.
All right.
So my only feeling about this is that you need to know what you're taking. So if you're taking turmeric or individual things, you can look those up online and find out whether or not, like Cassandra's saying, is there any evidence that this actually helps people with sickle cell disease? What you can get into trouble with is if you're taking a some kind of mixture of different things and you don't really know what's in it. So if you see things online and it's like this miracle drug for sickle cell disease, but they won't tell you what's in that miracle drug, then you have to be very skeptical about taking that. And there's a lot of people in this world who would love to make money off of somebody else's suffering. So
Mhm.
they will tell you that this will cure your sickle cell disease or make you better, but then they won't tell you what it is. That's not okay. And you can't ask your physician, your primary care provider, or a nutritionist if you go to a hospital, what are the things that I should be taking. But diet, rest is really important. The Mediterranean, what people call a Mediterranean diet, is really important for people with sickle cell disease. You can't eat junk food all the time and
Right.
think you're going to be fine when you have sickle cell disease. You got to really take care of yourself on the basic, just like Cassandra's mom is saying, on the basic level. You really have to take care of yourself. You can't go out and drink alcohol. You can't stay up late. You can't do that kind of stuff without paying for it the next day with your sickle cell. So you got to take care of yourself.
Bottom line, you are what you eat,
Yeah.
so whatever you eat, and it just listen to your body to see if it's in tune with your body or not. And like you said, mixing up all the drugs, that I would caution, because sometimes some of your medication might be, if you're taking hydroxy, or you might have some vitamins that might, or some things that you're taking that might not work with the hydroxyurea. So you have to make sure you know that, and let your doctor know what vitamins you're taking that would help you. But if you're staying away from vitamin, I just say focus on your nutrition. You can't go wrong with your nutrition, and if it's plant-based, or you're eating grass-fed meat, you have to really, really make sure that it's in tune with your body, whatever you put in your mouth. So that's the key to controlling inflammation.
So it sounds like we're all in agreement. Healthy living is where we need to be. Eating healthy foods to help mitigate some of those symptoms that we have, and I think everybody's, although we have differing views and so on and so forth, right? Just make sure you do the work and research what works for you. Try it out for yourself, but not anything is one size fits all. So turmeric could help me, but may not help my sister who has sickle cell. So, or whatever is out there. So,
Can I add to that too? Now that you brought your sister in, because for those who have iron overload, you may want to stay away from food with a lot of iron. So keep in mind, because if you have iron overload due to blood transfusion, you may want to stay away from taking supplements like iron to add more to it, or eating some foods that are rich in iron to add more to that too. So keep that in mind as well.
okie doke. Let me get back to my questions over here. I wanted to ask the person how can we help sickle cell patients in the community. I think we answered that, but your phone was dead. So, but we do save the lives. So if you want to go back, but you know, the long story short, get involved with the local community-based organization would be great. Sickle Cell 101 always looks for volunteers as well if you like to do digital stuff. And you know, just be an ally, keep learning more, educating others, I think is the best way to do that. This person says, hey, I'm currently taking hydroxyurea, voxelotor, and folic acid, but I'm really having trouble taking my pills. I can't even think about them because it makes me want to throw up. Any tips? I actually know what you feel. I actually know what you're going through. I think Dr. Q does too. What are your tips, Dr. Q, for that?
I think well, you have to be sure that it's psychological, right? So that the reason why
And it
you're
could
not,
be, honestly, it really
yeah.
could be. Yeah.
So you have to make sure that the reason why you're not taking medication is because you have some aversion or you just don't want to do it. And you're forcing yourself to do it, and that's what's making you upset. Versus there's one of those medications that actually are making you sick, or not feel well. So you can add one thing at a time to see if when you're taking that medication, does that affect you? If you take two together, does that affect you? You know, take your hydroxyurea and not the other medication, and then take that medication without the hydroxyurea, and then take them both together and see what happens. And you can also ask your provider what they think could be the problem as well. I have a cough today.
One thing I do is because I don't like the taste of some of my medication is I will take it with juice. Something that's like really thick, almost like a smoothie like that really just engulfs the taste. I that's usually a problem more so with my supplements than my like, you know, the medication that comes from, you know, my prescription medication. But you know, some medications say take it with food, some do not, so that could be a factor as well. I also try and for me personally, I take all my stuff at nighttime. And me and my mom have had conversations around this. She's like, you shouldn't be doing that. But and we need to have continued conversations around it. But I try and take stuff at night because I know I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm not gonna deal with nausea or anything. I'm gonna be sleeping as opposed to taking it in the morning and then feeling bad in the morning. So speak with your doctor. And my mom said it earlier, you have to you know, you think, oh, doctors don't even know about supplements or anything like that. There are drug reactions to everything, or there's reactions to everything. So you do have to make sure you tell your doctors or healthcare providers that you're taking supplements as well. And they can tell you, oh, hey, this may need to be taken in the morning, this may need to be taken at night, and maybe this will help with the nausea or help with throwing up. But my pro tip is I make sure I drink. I'm trying to cut back on juices because Dr. Q said, like, you know, juices aren't the healthiest for you and they have a lot of sugar. And but that, like, I love juice. We grew up with like juice is it for me. What I try and do is I drink water all throughout the day, and then when it comes to taking my medicine, then I'll take like a juice or something really thick to kind of just help me take that medicine and make sure I don't get nausea and all of that. Anything to add?
There's some things like ginger, you know, if you have nausea, that can help mitigate just the nausea itself. Just either ginger tea would help with the nausea piece.
Okay. All right. To the next question here. There's this maybe Dr. Q, let me know if you know about this one. It says, can you give any info on how well nurses have performed I don't know what Tudel means, and manage your symptoms when gone into the ED or AE. I'm writing a dissertation on sickle cell patient care in hospital. Any advice? Thank you.
So what what was the first part of that question?
The info on how nurses perform with sickle cell patients to manage symptoms. Please let me know if I got that right, or if you can provide any other additional information.
So, I
Highness.
mean, you know, I think it depends on. I can tell you what I used to be a nurse. I was a nurse for 8 years before I was a doctor, so I know what it's like to be a nurse. So, um, and it depends on your your experience with certain diseases. It depends on your attitude, how you how you see people who have illness. You know, like if people with sickle cell disease frequently go into the ED with the stigma, you're just a drug seeker, that kind of thing, and your biases. And I think you have to know what they are as a nurse. I generally think at least where I practiced, the nurses were very good, and they actually had sickle cell nurses. Unfortunately, even for doctors and nurses, there's no specific um, training to take care of people with sickle cell. They basically, it's on the job. So some people are going to be very good and other people are not going to be quite as good.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Q. From a parent perspective, I've had all of them and in different parts of the country as well, because my daughters have fallen sick in different parts of the country and different parts of the world as well. And from my experience, states that have a comprehensive sickle cell program, they do much, much better than states that don't. I have been in a hospital where I have to be knowledgeable as a parent. And I have noted that some nurses have no clue whatsoever about sickle cell, that I tend to be telling them what to do sometimes in a hospital. And so, as a parent, you have to be very, very knowledgeable when you go into the ER or when you go into any hospital, because don't assume that they all know what they're doing, because sometimes they do not know what they're doing. And so, you, as a parent, have that knowledge, and you can tell them, or you can give them your plan as to how to treat you, because most sickle cell patients should have a plan all ready to go. So when they're in the ER, you just have to just share the plan with them. And that's usually helpful for many nurses. It shares as a guide. So, and some of them act like they do know because they don't want to look inept. And those are the most dangerous ones. So you have to really, really, as a parent, know and sense who those nurses are. So, from a parent's perspective, some of them do know, and some of them do not know. Yeah, so that has been my experience.
Okay.
I think you're right too. Where if you live in an area where there are very few people with sickle cell disease, you just have there's no way those providers, the doctors, the nurses, anybody is going to learn about that much about sickle cell disease. And back in the day, before 2007, there used to be 10 sickle cell centers in the country, and they were federally funded, and they did a lot of clinical research for sickle cell disease. The funding was taken away from them in 2007, but during the time that sickle cell centers existed, there was a lot of education for providers all over the country about sickle cell. And there were meetings where if you were a provider, a nurse, social worker, anybody who had contact with people with sickle cell, you could go to those meetings and learn a lot. When I started, I was a nurse and a pediatrician, and then I worked with people with sickle cell. that's how I learned about sickle cell disease, was going to those meetings for about 2 or 3 years and learning about sickle cell. Sickle cell is very complicated. It may seem to someone who doesn't know anything, like Cassandra's mom saying, the people who think they know the most maybe and are very assertive maybe don't know as much as you think they know. So you gotta, it's a complicated disease, takes a long time to learn. And you have to have some kind of empathy and compassion towards the people as well.
And Dr. Q, you did add too about the biases. You know, that is very prevalent as well. That them having the notion, nurses having the notion that they're drug seekers, and that's pretty much it. So I think when you're having a nursing program, they have to be aware of their own biases and to have the self-reflection or self-assessment as to how their biases would influence their practice as well. So for whoever's writing their dissertation on that, that is very, very important, is a self-assessment of nurses to find out where how they're dealing with their own biases, if they have any at all.
Okay. And then the follow-up question is how basically how well are nurses trained to care for patients with sickle cell? That really is, unfortunately, it's not standardized. A lot of nurses will say they've heard of sickle cell. Some, it varies from and I'm sure there's studies out there that show, that knowledge gap or discrepancy. I don't know if you know any off the top of your head, but it isn't standardized, I guess, is the response to that. So because it's not standardized, and this applies to healthcare providers in general, not just nurses, even doctors, even ER doctors, even specialists. There could be a hematologist who's never treated somebody with sickle cell. There's even there's levels to all of these things. And so I do know that there's studies are surrounding that, but obviously we need more information, or we need more data on what exactly that level is. So I'll just say it really varies, and kind of the luck of the draw, whether you get somebody who knows about sickle cell or not. But what we're trying to do is make sure that it is standardized so that people do, at least have heard of it. You don't have a doctor or nurse coming in saying, so how long have you had sickle cell for? That shouldn't happen. So that's really the goal, is to make sure that this information is a little bit more standard, and everybody's getting it. I want to quickly answer this question. Can AS and AS get healthy babies? Because my only child is SS. So if you have two people with trait, there's a 25% chance of having a child with SS each pregnancy. So a lot of times people get confused. They see that family tree and they see, the first possibility is AA, the second possibility is AS or whatever. Every single pregnancy, there is if you have two parents with AS, there's a 25% chance that you have a child with sickle cell disease. There's also a 25% chance that you have a child that's AA that doesn't have any sickle cell gene. And then there's a 50% chance that your child will have trait AS as well. So that's the breakdown. Now, that's just with the S genotype. There's also other genotypes. So there's like SC, S beta thalassemia. And so, if sickle cell pairs with C, for example, with C trait, that causes sickle cell disease as well. And of course, those probabilities look a little bit different, but if you're asking specifically for AS and AS, there's a 25% chance each pregnancy to have a child with sickle cell disease.
So I think if you have sickle cell trait AS, and you're planning on having children with another person, then you need to know what that person's genotype is, because newborn screening does not necessarily always pick up thalassemia, and hemoglobin C is unusual, and if you have thalassemia trait or C trait, you probably have and sickle cell trait as well. You don't have any symptoms, so it's kind of behooving on you to just so you have so you're not totally surprised. You should have trait testing or know what your trait is if you're with somebody and you're planning on having children.
Can I add to that too? So, for example, my family is a good case of AS and AS. So I do have 2 kids with sickle cell disease. I have 2 kids with AS, and I have 1 that's AA. So that's that's my family right there. So 25% chance of having normal, 25% chance of having kids with SS, and also 25% chance of you having a kid with AS. So I have 2 SS, 2 AS, and 1 normal, 1 AA.
We say typical, not normal.
Yeah. Atypical. Okay.
No, typical. Because I'm
Typical.
normal.
Okay.
What? I'm normal.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
All right. So we have, I would say, time for a couple more questions. Actually, I'll say 2. Somebody said most people don't know anything about sickle cell. I'm in Utah, and we don't even have a sickle cell doctor out here. I actually never heard of anything about sickle cell related in Utah. Have you, Dr. Q?
No, I mean, I went to nursing school in the 70s, and I went to medical school in the early 80s. And I didn't know anything about sickle cell disease until I did my residency at Children's Hospital in Oakland. I mean, when I was a nurse, I'd never even heard of sickle cell disease. I didn't know it. I mean, I hadn't heard of it, period. And when I was in my training in medical school, my guess is they spent so little time on it that I don't even remember. So it's if you were not in a place where there were people with sickle cell disease in an urban center, where the hospital, where there was a sickle cell program or hematologist, you would really, it's not surprising to me that people don't know anything about sickle cell disease. And the unfortunate part of it is some people, like Cassandra's mom was saying, some people think they know about sickle cell disease and they don't. And those are the people that are going to get you into trouble. People who don't know anything about sickle cell disease and know they don't know anything, they're going to look for answers. It's the people who think they know and they're wrong. That's the issue. But it's a very rare disease. There's 100,000 people in the country with sickle cell. So it's really it's not surprising that there are so many people who don't know anything about sickle cell. Although I must say, with the new therapies and in the press and the media, there's way more about sickle cell disease now than there was 20 plus years ago.
And as a parent, if you live in Utah, find out if there are any parent groups that you can that can support you as well. I mean, I know you're not the only one with sickle cell in Utah. Probably a couple of you out there. So find out where they are as a parent, and try to connect with them. So that way, at least you have that support from a parent, and they may know things that you may not, and you can share information through that way.
And if you do that, you may be the first person to do that and start a group of people who have sickle cell disease. And you can, not only are you going to help yourself, you can help a lot of other people. And like Sandra's mom saying, there's definitely other people, if you live in like Salt Lake or somewhere, where there's somebody with sickle cell disease. Because the people who take care of you don't know anything doesn't mean there are no patients around anyway.
And I think if people in Utah, if you find them, you can be an advocate for the hospital to help create some form of program that can help people with sickle cell. If you find that there are 5 of you can gang up together and advocate for yourselves at any hospital that you know that's willing to help you and support you.
All right, I have time for one more question. If we didn't get your question, put it here right now. I'm gonna be looking at what questions come in right now, and that'll be the question. We'll wrap up here. I will also just say we're talking a little bit about nutrition and just having a better lifestyle for 2024. Two things. Someone brought up a really interesting point. It's expensive to eat healthy. That's the elephant in the room. That's the problem, right? Is like we all aspire to eat healthy, but then you go down to Whole Foods and they take your whole wallet, and it's just like, and so eating healthy is almost a luxury. So how do you manage that? What is your advice for trying to eat healthy, trying to live healthy? And it's not just eating healthy, it's exercise, right? And that's free. You can take a walk. Walking is free and all of that. Meditating, mental health, all of that. A lot of these things are free, but some of these things are not. And like eating healthy is not. So what is your response to that? And then I just wanted to share that we do have a post out for 5 resolutions that you should make for the new year that I've added as a New Year's resolution for myself. So obviously I'm biased, but I will still share them with you. Pre-schedule all your medical appointments for the year. I did this, so I take hydroxyurea and I do labs on a monthly basis. I scheduled my labs out. It didn't let me do the whole year, but it let me do 6 months. So I will not miss a lab in 6 months because I've already pre-scheduled that. So I've done that. And then I've also done some other appointments too, but just be nice to your future self and take care of your future self. That's really the goal here. Make things easier because, tomorrow you can be in pain and you would really wish you had that help or whatever from your past self. The second one I have is drink a glass of water or 2 first thing in the morning. At night, we lose water, we get dehydrated. So make sure the first thing you do when you wake up is you drink water. I have here set alarms to remember to take your daily medication and or supplements. If you guys are taking medication, do it the right way. This is something I always advocate. If you're going to do it right, or don't do it at all, because you won't see any benefit to taking medication if you're doing it like you're only taking it, once every other day or whatever. You have to make sure you're committed to taking the medication every day. And so for that, I would forget. I have a really, really bad memory. I would forget to take my medication every day. So I set an alarm. The fourth one is identify the most effective ways to manage stress. This is big. This is really big because we all know stress is a trigger for sickle cell and for crisis and for pain. And so whatever it is you do to calm down, if it's gaming, I'm laughing because I almost want to share what I do, but it's embarrassing, so maybe I won't. Okay. I'll just share with you guys, and if it is what it is, right? I like ASMR, so I don't know if you guys know anything about that. My mom's gonna be like, "What the hell?" But I love ASMR videos, and I think it's because I have sickle cell, and it's because I have pica. So let me explain this. This gets weirder. But watching people vacuum actually like brings me joy and calms me down and sometimes makes me fall asleep. But it brings me down to a level. So if I'm like hyped up, if I'm like, it helps bring me down so that I am not at risk for a crisis or for pain or for whatever. I know I told you it's really, really weird. I like watching people clean up. I like cleaning videos. I like seeing disorder get fixed. but yeah, so whatever weird quirky thing. I also liked chalk when I was younger too, and my mom can tell you all about that. So but that's, it's weird, but it's part of sickle cell. That's sickle cell.
Micah.
Yeah. The last one I have here is build your sickle cell tribe. So I have you guys can see on live right now, I have, the best doctor in the world, and I have my mom, and she's the best mom in the world. Come fight me. Anyway, these are people that are part of my tribe. So if I pick up the phone and call Dr. Q, I had something going on with my ears where my hearing went out. I talked with Dr. Q, and he's like, see a specialist, provide that guidance. You guys need to find your Dr. Q. You guys need to find, your advocate, your person, your mom. It may not be a mom. It may be somebody else in the community. It may be somebody else living with sickle cell. It doesn't have to be a parent, but find your people who can support you, because this is such an isolating disease. So those are my 5 important resolutions. I said there's a post on Sickle Cell 101's Instagram, and I think Facebook and other platforms, that outline the importance of each one of these resolutions. But I'm going to challenge you to choose one of them and add them to your resolutions so that we can live a healthier and happier 2024. So that's my goal to you all. Okay, that was a long rant, but I'm going to go ahead and look for that question. Let's see here.
I think you talked
Did
about.
did you guys laugh at my vacuum thing? Was that funny to you? Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys, if you guys couldn't hear me, please, the live is saved and it's also on YouTube. Oh my gosh, they didn't hear any of that. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm so sorry. Long story short, there's 5 important resolutions for the new year. Go check them out on our page. And also I talked about how I manage stress. I like ASMR. I like vacuum ASMR. So I like watching people vacuum. It's fun. And there's a whole community there too. So I don't feel there's like thousands of people who like watching, at least thousands who like watching vacuum videos. A lot of them are pregnant women. So these are obviously people who have some sort of anemia. But yeah, there's a lot of pregnant women out there vacuuming and posting videos, and I watch them. That's my relaxation. All right. I still didn't see one question come through.
But can I add to that? Eating expensive from Whole Food?
Yes.
Yeah, farmers market is another good place where you can buy your food and eat healthy. You don't necessarily have to go shopping at Whole Food or Sprout. You could go to your local farmers market and pick up the vegetables that are out there.
And then I always say, but it's not that these are any cheaper, but I usually like supplements to make sure that I'm getting those nutrients. So I will take, supplements, or I get supplements to make sure that I have those nutrients. I'm so sorry about the muting, guys. I apologize for that. Here's a question that I saw. Why do doctors think people with SS are drug seekers? That's how we're ending this one. Dr. Q.
Okay, so it's because most people don't know anything about sickle cell disease. I'm talking about doctors now, because it's a rare disease and they just don't know that much. The other thing is doctors work in hospitals. So what do you see when you see people with sickle cell disease? They're always sick and they're always in pain. And so they're always needing opioids. When they're in the hospital, same thing. So they have this really kind of warped impression of people with sickle cell disease. And they never really took a step back to look at people any person who has sickle cell disease or another disease and look at them as a person. If you looked at people with sickle cell disease as people just like you wouldn't feel that way. So there's a bias involved in that, as well as a very narrow perspective because you don't really see the whole person. And it's very pervasive. I mean, that's probably the thing that I heard the most when I was working with people with sickle cell disease. Why am I treated like this in ED? And most of it is ignorance and just the lack of exposure and not opening yourself up to seeing this person as another person just like you who's suffering. And also, people have expectations. They're like, well, I read in the book that after 5 days, your sickle cell pain is supposed to go away. You're not supposed to be here anymore. I'm going to discharge you tomorrow. Whereas in reality, people with pain with sickle cells can last for 2 weeks. They may not have to be in the hospital 2 weeks, but there's no like recipe where on this day this happens, on this day. You just have to. People are different. I think Cassandra can tell you that every episode of pain is different. It's not the same every single time. So, but I think it's just a lack of information, lack of familiarity, and then always seeing, if you're a doctor or a nurse, only seeing people with sickle cell when they're sick. And you're also frustrated because there's nothing you can do about it. Doctors like to be able to fix things, but sickle cell disease is a chronic disease. You can't fix it. You can treat it and have empathy, but the person with pain you're going to see him again. So that's just the way the disease is.
Yeah, and then I see Small said something about, people, you having that pain plan, you being prepared, right? And you have this documentation and everything, and you give it to the healthcare provider, and they still don't listen or they still don't adhere. That's where you call. This is why Sickle Cell Tribe is so important. That's where you call your healthcare, your primary care physician, your hematologist, whoever, and have them talk it out. Peer to peer, they can speak each other's languages. That I think is more successful than you trying to fight a doctor. So that's why it's important. You just really need to find, and I'm not even saying it's easy, because good doctors are hard to come by. Good doctors for sickle cell are hard to come by, right? Dr. Q always makes it a point to say, you don't have to be a hematologist to be a good sickle cell doctor. And it's true. You just need somebody to be in your corner and who to fight for you, to advocate for you, to look things up on your behalf. That's what you need. You just need a good doctor to fight on your behalf. And then, if as you're rolling to the ER, call them up, say, hey, I'm going to need you in on this, and have them help you fight your battle. So it's going to be really very, very important to have those type of people. I call my mom too. My mom she doesn't mind telling anybody off. She really doesn't. And she's very, very influential. She will get things done. She will get things done. So just have those people, find those people, and have those people around you. You shouldn't be fighting your battles alone. Sickle cell is not a one-person thing. It's really takes a community to address and manage sickle cell disease. So just think of it in that way, as opposed to seeing it yourself. And if you got to use this year to put in the work to find a good doctor, to find that person to go to bat for you, then it's worth it, because it can be life-saving. It has been life-saving for me. So all right. Do you want to give your special statement, and we'll wrap up our very first live of the year? Sorry that it took so long to get here. I had a medical emergency last week, and it's just January's been interesting already. But Dr. Q, I'll let you say your special statement.
Okay, so I just want to say that everything you hear from me and everybody else really is our opinion. So we're not trying to treat any kind of problem you have with sickle cell disease. We're not really advocating, even though we talk about different medications, we're not advocating for any one of those medications. And we're here basically, Sickle Cell 101 is here for information. You know, knowledge is power. And if the more you know about sickle cell disease, the more you know about how to take care of yourself with sickle cell disease, the healthier you're going to be. So when we sign off, go and learn something about sickle cell disease for yourself, because you need to, like Cassandra's mom is saying, you need to know about sickle cell disease to advocate for yourself. And one thing I would just say, follow up from Cassandra, is if you are going to go to the emergency room or to a hospital and you have a primary care doctor, call them first and tell them you're going to the emergency room. And well, at least what I used to do is you call the emergency room with what they call an expect. Expect my patient with sickle cell to come there, and this is what I expect you to be doing when they get there. And that doctor can tell them, this is their second pain episode in 2 weeks. Do this, and this. And if you have a problem, call me. That actually helps the ED person, takes them off the hook, so they know who they can call if things don't go exactly the way they thought they should go. Although I must say that not all ED doctors listen to anybody. So anyway,
and just to quickly add to that, you can fire doctors. You can fire doctors. Know that, use that, because even still, your doctor will call another doctor and the doctor still won't do anything. Fire them, find somebody else to take over your care. I've done that before. So, all right, we'll sign up. We will see you in 2 weeks, maybe 1 week.
1 week.
To get back on schedule. So if we didn't have any, or if your question didn't get answered, either come back next week or send your question to ask@sc101.org. If you guys like long, thorough responses, Dr. Q does a fantastic job of answering questions via email as well. And he provides all the receipts, so all the sources and everything. If you're a nerd like me and you want to dig into something, that's also a great resource. So ask@sc101.org if you didn't get your question answered. Thank you guys so much for joining this live. It's Friday. I'm so excited. I'm so excited it's Friday. I'm going to sleep in tomorrow. Hope you guys do too.
Bye-bye. See you in a week.